What's up, guys? Welcome back to Salescast. And what we're talking about this week is what happens when you want to get a deal in, but the prospect's stalling. You can't get next steps lined up, and you can't predict when the deal's actually going to close. So, Max, I don't know if you ever deal with that as a manager.
Yeah, all the time. This is super top of mind. Like the most relevant story I can give, and I want to kick it back to you to get your thoughts is we've been running into some of our larger deals as of late where we get through product concept, we get through all the objections, we get through all the technical objections, right? We get to the point where the contract's in hand, it's in the last, stage of the deal cycle, and we get a yes, we want to do this. But there's no firm commitments on when they're going to make the decision, how they're going to make the decision. They're kind of wishy-washy about it. And so we've kind of been running into deals stalling close to the end, like right when they're going to sign. Some cases they've signed, right? They were being lazy. In other cases, they're still stalled. So just curious on what are some of the questions that you ask or the tactics that you use to either drive urgency or just understand like, hey, am I going to forecast this properly or do I need to push this out another month?
Got it. Do you think they're stalling because they don't believe in the solution, or you just don't have a path to close?
In some cases, it's been that they believe in the solution, but there's a blocker that they weren't willing to talk about. So that was one instance that we were able to overcome, and that just was me getting on a call with them and pressing them about certain things that they were saying, and then the real objection eventually came out. And then other cases, it's like I couldn't tell you, it's like, oh, we're gonna sign, and then we don't hear from them for a week, and then they're just like, oh, I was on vacation, and it just sounds like bullshit, kind of. So
Mhm.
it's like, how do I filter through some of that? You know what I mean?
And actually get to the root cause of like, why are you not signing?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. This is stuff I've seen plenty of times back at like Panadoc, the last company. Is we had the situation set up where they were bought in on the concept. This all looks great, but our closing percentage was low because we couldn't tie it to a date. It'd be like, yeah, I'll offer you a discount if you sign by end of month, but they hear that from everybody. So you have to go a couple layers deeper. So the first thing I always do is set up a trial close. Are you willing to recommend that your company purchase us? Quick litmus test of, hey, are you willing to make the recommendation? I'm not asking you to sign anything, not asking you to go move forward, but I want to test the waters to see if we can set up a close. So we get a positive, yes, I'm ready to recommend. That's great. The second thing I do is when. When could your company benefit from actually using this? And that can actually be spun in today's world to what happens if you don't implement this the next week? What are the negative impacts of extending out the problem that you already have? What if it takes 2 months of contract and procurement? Where does that leave you, Mr. Champion? I see what you're doing, but yeah, we need this last week. Okay. So we're pulling down the problems that happens if a deal stalls, if things take too long. And that's where we can really confirm on timeline is setting up a go live date when you want to see value. Let's say that's 3 weeks out from now. Onboarding's 2.5 weeks. Sounds like we need to get this signed by Monday, maybe Tuesday, if we're sitting here on Tuesday this week. So what needs to happen for that to happen? And that's really where small incentives can actually drive a deal forward. If you're willing to recommend and be a champion, we have a path to close, and we know what happens if you guys don't close. We're willing to partner with you and help expedite decision-making processes internally by offering an incentive with those who want to partner with us. Big fancy way of saying I got a 10% discount till next Tuesday. If it doesn't happen by next Tuesday, what's your recourse? What's your action plan? I don't know. Well, we're going to have to pull that incentive back because this is a reason for us to do business. We do business at full price all the time, but we're going to make an exception for you because we want to meet your timelines and we want to partner with you. So those are some of the steps that I've used to actually make it predictable and get to the point where I'm closing deals a week before the end of the month rather than throwing up Hail Marys of 25, 30, 40% on the 31st. Have you seen anything similar?
Yeah, I think a couple of those are actually super helpful things that I haven't thought about in a couple months. That were have reminded me of certain things. Like I think something that you said that will resonate with a lot of people is like, can you get someone? And I've been talking about this with my team. Is like we need to get hard confirmations from people about certain things. The one thing that I haven't been doing with my team is getting a confirmation on a go live date. Like when do you think you could benefit from using something like this? and like getting an actual win, not just like, oh, we could benefit right now. Obviously, we need to go through your buying process. We need to make sure everyone agrees with it at the earliest convenience. Like, when is going to be the best time to move forward with something like this? And they might say, honestly, it usually takes us like 3 months to go through this. We want this by April 27th. Okay, great. April 27th is that day that you want to at least have a decision made. And
On that point, actually, April 27th, what's important about April 27th? Take it one level deeper. What do you have going on the 27th?
Yeah, which was going to bring me to my next point, which was getting a critical event of why they need to have something like this. And so like you get that hard and firm date and it's like, okay, why? You know what I mean? Like what, maybe not why, you hate that question. So it's like, what's going to happen on that date if we don't get something like this in place? And so like the date is great. You get a hard commitment, but then it's like, there's an actual value and something's actually happening that you can tie to that date. So if people do start to stall a little bit towards the end of your sales cycle, you can go back and say, hey, we talked about X, Y, and Z on our first call. You had mentioned like this is going to happen. And so what's going to happen? Is that specific thing still happening? Is it not? What's changed? You know what I mean? You can bring up those pains in that event again, which was like a big piece that I think that I haven't been thinking about, honestly, is like, what's the actual reason that you want to do this fast? Like you could say ASAP is my timeline, but anyone that's ever been an SDR and hears someone says ASAP, it just sounds bullshit. Like, why is it ASAP? What's going on? That makes your timeline ASAP. So I think that critical event piece is kind of like the thing that will tie all that in.
Exactly. And quick definition on critical events. This is the date where something bad happens on your prospect side. If they don't have this by SKO, let's call it, which is the 27th of April, they can't roll it out to their team. They can't train them. And it's going to push back another couple months. And they're going to miss all that time. And the problems that they have today are just going to continue to get worse. That's a critical event. Versus what might be known as a compelling event is we have a discount that's good until April 27th. That is a seller focused event, not a prospect focused event, which would be a critical one.
And a good question would be, when you have a compelling event tied to a critical event, I would assume that's probably something that's can be a little bit more powerful when you connect both. How do you do that without being like, hey, I'll give you a fucking discount if you sign by then? Like, oh, this is happening. Like, how do you strategically say that to somebody?
It's taking that information that you discover. It's not just the 27th. Something's happening on the 27th. We understand what that is. And then you tie a story as the reason for your incentive. We're a little bit behind on this quarter and we need to hit our number by this date. And our finance team has approved X for customers who sign up, but it's limited to the first 15. And these are things that actually happen. Finance does put this in place, but they also put a guardrail in place to make sure the sales reps aren't going wild. So you tie the story that's relevant to their timeline as a reason to actually sign up and get started. And again, you're making this prospect focus where this benefits them and can actually impact them with a go live date, a realization of value, that aha moment. Hey, this is actually going to benefit us. Versus, yep, sales guy said 30% off. Let's see if we can push them 35, 40, 45, 50.
Yeah.
It gets into dangerous waters when you play that game.
Yeah.
Beauty. So hopefully that helps you guys bring some predictability into your pipeline management, when deals are going to come in, and helps put a closing schedule in place. And if I can leave you with one last thought, is always get a calendar invite on as the next step. Don't leave the meeting without a calendar invite. If you can jump in at the end, say, hey, can we sync on this on Friday since you meet with your team Friday morning? They're not going to say no. They want to make this happen if you've done the process correctly to this point.
Yep.
So always get those next steps on the calendar. We'll see you guys next week.